Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. All right, Tyson, we keep on moving, baby. NFL previews, we're knocking these things out. We have done the West, we have done the South, and we're moving into the North as we're starting with the AFC North division, one of the best divisions in football, probably was the best division of football last year. This is going to be a banger to talk about. If this is your first time tuning in, we talk about each team, how we think they're going to do this year. But right now, we give a general overview of how we think this division is going to play out, or just our thoughts on the division. So where are you at with the AFC North?
Well, also, if it's your first time tuning in, especially to an AFC North episode, stick around for Brad and I to bury the Pittsburgh Steelers just for them to win 89 games later this year. We're going to do it again, folks. I'm not scared of it. It's one of those things where when you look at this division, you go, wow, this division's awesome. You watch this division play, you go, wow, all these guys are awesome. And then the playoffs come, and it's like, I don't trust anybody from the AFC North. And like it's been that way. I know the Bengals went to the Super Bowl, but I mean, Baltimore ran the ball like 8 times last year in a game they should have won against Kansas City, hosting the AFC title game. We've seen Pittsburgh do it a bunch. We've seen the Ravens do it a bunch. Somebody's got to break through this glass ceiling. It just feels like there's 2 or 3 teams in this division year in and year out that can win the Super Bowl. The playoffs start, and it's like the most physical division in football can't hang, and I can't figure it out.
It's super strange. And you talk about the Ravens. Let's get into them. And this is still a painful thing for us. I mean, we were pounding the table that the Ravens were going to beat the Chiefs. And if they would have ran the football like they did all season long, they probably would have. 9 rushes. I can't get into this again. It's just, holy smokes, what a complete mess. Well, Tyson, you know what? I think the front office went out and said, hey, guys, here's a toy we're going to make you remind to run the football, because they went out and signed Derrick Henry, 2 years, $16 million. Felt like the wheels are kind of coming off a little bit at the end. Everybody's been waiting for when this thing is going to shut down, and Derrick Henry continues to be like, nope, father time. You're not coming to get me yet. He's on his Tom Brady grind. And this brings an element here that this rushing offense can be the best in the NFL like it was last year again. I mean, you have a monster in Derrick Henry. Lamar Jackson has slimmed down. He says he wants to get back to being more elusive. I'm curious to know how that looks. I'm curious to know how that looks from the passing standpoint, I will say. But what do you think about the Ravens coming in here after a disappointing exit in the AFC Championship game?
Well, I will always be a little bit higher on the Baltimore Ravens than I probably should be. I love Harbaugh. I always have. I love the way that the Ravens play football. I always have. Whether it's just like random guys like the Geno Stone thing, like out of note, like there's just like dudes on this team that seem to elevate every year, and we'll find out who that is. We know the big names. We know your Lamar Jacksons, your Derrick Henrys, your Kyle Hamiltons, all of that stuff. But eventually, like, they got to win when it matters, or else it's going to be hard to keep feeling like this. Because I'm sitting here right now going, maybe I'm too high on the Baltimore Ravens. We talk about this every year. The receiving core needs work. And you go out and you draft the Zay Flowers in the first round last year, and he had a really good year for a rookie wide receiver. We've been hearing, wow, Rashad Bateman looks really good. But we heard, wow, Rashad Bateman looks really good a year ago and then 2 years ago. And so it's hard to buy into those things. One of the things that I am interested in from what we've been hearing out of training camp for the Baltimore Ravens, Isaiah Likely sounds like he's going to actually get some burn with Mark Andrews on the field. I think that is the most it's the most thought-provoking thing that could happen within this division, because when Isaiah Likely played last year, he was awesome. He was dynamite down the stretch when Mark Andrews was out. If you can get those 2 monsters on the field at the same time, then you can run 2 tight end sets with options off of it with Derrick Henry in the backfield. Good luck. Cleveland's defense is awesome. Since Big Lou in Cincinnati, has been awesome for a long time. Nobody in the league can deal with that if they're running super jumbo, just like 22 stuff at you. I'm excited for the Baltimore Ravens. I'm a little nervous that the taste that's left in your mouth at the end of last season can't just be solved by going, well, we got a superstar running back, because if Derrick Henry does fall off a little bit, Brad, that's just Gus Edwards.
Yeah, and the other concern I have beyond that too is I'm looking at the players who left, and it's not like, all right, these guys are old and they're still on the market. Let's go through it. They lost four offensive linemen, 3 in free agency who ended up with new teams. John Simpson, their guard, Kevin Zeitler, their guard. One went to the Jets, one went to the Lions. Sam Musford, their center, went to the Broncos, and they traded Morgan Moses, their starting right tackle, to the Jets. That's 4 guys you got to replace. I mean, 3 starters, 4 starters. You rotate them in. That's a lot. On defense, not only did you lose Mike McDonald, your stud defensive coordinator, which I think is going to have ramifications, but Patrick Queen's now in the division with the Steelers. Ronald Darby, that guy's got 9 lives. I mean, he's went to the Jags.
He's been around for a minute, and he's still like
27. Minute, man. Rocky Yassin goes to the Niners. Another guy who seems to have 9 lives. And then Geno Stone, who you talked about, the safety, he went in Division 2. He went to the Bengals. And so there's just a lot of people that have left. There's a lot of change, and I'm wondering if they're going to be able to do what they did last year this season. Now, Lamar's a 2-time MVP. You expect him to continue to elevate. But Tyson, it's been great when we see it work. But I think part of the reason why we always say, this wide receiver unit isn't very good is because Lamar's not able to elevate them the way that Patrick Mahomes did last season, the way Josh Allen's been able to, and the other quarterbacks in the past have done it. So there are red flags for me when it comes to this team.
To be fair, I think this is fair. You tell me if you disagree. Last year might have been Lamar's first year with an actual offensive coordinator who embraced the forward pass. And so that kind of changed things a little bit. And so I'm still jury out a little bit. He was much more willing to kind of just say, you know what, I'm throwing this thing 40 yards down the field than he has been in years past, and it resulted in another MVP. It's just like the team that played the 49ers on Christmas being the same team that shows up to the AFC Championship game is impossible to wrap your brain around.
Yeah, it's truly frightening. So the Browns last year, you want to talk about just a crazy story. Deshaun Watson continues to suck, and then he gets hurt, and he's out for the year. And they bring in Joe Flacco off his freaking couch, and the guy threw for more yards than Watson did. It was unbelievable. He comeback player of the year, just looked fantastic running this offense. And it's a double-edged sword if you're the Browns, right? Because you just look like, holy smokes, is this what the offense can be under Stefanski with a quarterback who can throw the ball accurately and aggressively down the field? The problem is it's Flacco, and so he's a veteran and he's gone. Well, we got Deshaun Watson still, Tyson. Ooh, that's are we sure we're ready to do that? Are you going to one of those classic things like I'm ready to be hurt again? That feels like it's the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, and this is just to kind of illustrate your point a little bit with Deshaun Watson. His third year in the league was probably his worst year as a true full-time starter in Houston. He threw for 3,800 yards. He threw for 26 touchdowns. He threw for 12 picks. In his 2 years in Cleveland, he's thrown for 2,200 yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He's been markedly worse than even and everybody in the world knew. Joe Barry, what are you doing when you're giving this guy this contract, when you're trading these pieces for this guy? And we were just talking about from a PR standpoint. None of us thought. It was he's going to have to knock the rust off, and it's going to take a while. He's not going to look like Deshaun Watson. But I don't know if he's ever going to look like Deshaun Watson because we're already hearing, my shoulder hurts. Yep. My shoulder hurts. And it kind of feels like maybe the guy Dabo Swinney compared to Michael Jordan got his bag and doesn't care so much about getting ready for an NFL season anymore. I think that is obviously the number one thing that you talk about with the Browns. Number 2, what is this running game going to look like? They cut Donta Foreman. Maybe he's going to make it back through waivers to the practice squad, and they can elevate when they need to. But it's probably going to be another Jerome Ford year, which is a fine thing. And he was a really good player. Obviously, he's not Nick Chubb, and we don't know what Nick Chubb's going to look like coming back from this injury. But when you're kind of banking on this is going to be our identity, we're going to run the football, we're going to punch you in the face, and then it's 85 yards on 22 carries from your starting running back. It's tougher to live with that identity. The defense was one of the best in the league last year. They have some of the best players at their positions in the league. Myles Garrett is a favorite again for Defensive Player of the Year. All those things are awesome. If they can't throw the ball, they can't win games. If they can't win games, they can't go anywhere because nobody's taken over this contract. It kind of feels like for all of the steps that David Njoku's made, for the immortal status that Amari Cooper has reached, all this stuff, it's like, man, if they're going to throw for 2,200 yards or 2,700 yards with Deshaun Watson playing quarterback, it's bad. And like we get the news that DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, staying on the 53. Tyler Huntley's got to go find a new job. So like some of these other guys they brought in, but what happens to Jameis Winston? If Jameis plays, the ceiling might be higher. Which is crazy.
Oh, I mean, let's do this. Money aside right now, if you look at Jameis Winston, you look at Deshaun Watson.
He's better.
He's better. Yeah. He's not afraid to throw the ball down the field. How did they win games last year? Joe Flacco just ripped it and gripped it and ripped it, man. Like Watson can't do that. That's with the shoulder. I mean, so you factor that in. Now, again, finances are going to cause the Browns to play him until they honestly can't, right? Until he's out injured or until it's to the point where everybody's like, it's just not going to work. We haven't gotten that point. We are at the tipping point, though. Like, we're on the edge, and it's going to go one way or the other. He's going to be able to lean back to safety, or he's going to fall off the cliff, and we're going to look at this like one of the biggest career collapses in the history of the sport. Like, it is remarkable to see just where he's fallen from.
Couldn't happen to a better guy, huh?
Pittsburgh Steelers, and Tyson tees it up, and we'll get some shots in here. But first, we got to say, how does he do it, man? How does Mike Tomlin continue to do it?
So good.
He's so good, and it's so funny. And you know what? I understand Steelers fans. You can get a little frustrated with, well, we have winning seasons, but we're not competing for championships. Is that on the coach or is that on the front office? Because there aren't very many good players in this franchise. I mean, the fact that he's taken this chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad, you should be commending him. He should have a statue. It's unbelievable. I mean, if you fire him, the guy's going to have a job in 2 seconds. Like, it's truly crazy. Like, you don't think the Carolina Panthers would kill to have this guy? Like, you don't think that any of these other just horrendous teams would kill to have Mike Tomlin run their program? Of course they would. So be thankful this guy actually wants to stick around when the front office can't get him players.
Well, let's if you want to say it's fun to make the playoffs, but like the ruins our draft pick and everything, and is it GM or a coach? Brad, this isn't the Chicago Bulls with Rajon Rondo, Dwayne Wade, and Jimmy Butler, where the GM is just trying to get butts in the seats, and if you make the playoffs, cool. This is, hey, here's Mason Rudolph, here's Kenny Pickett, here's Duck Hodges. Go out there and win 9 games, and he does it time and time again. This year they bring in Arthur Smith. Say what you will, and we've said plenty about the guy. I actually think it's a good fit for the way that they're going to play football this year. I think there might have been a lot of you guys out there prematurely burying Najee Harris. I think you're going to find out this year he was better than Jalen Warren. He will be better than Jalen Warren, but Jalen Warren offers an awesome number 2 option out of that backfield. What the hell are they going to – is George Pickens getting 500 targets this year, and is he only catching 200 of those 500? This is not – a passing game that is inspiring any fear in anybody's heart.
No, that's the worry about when you bring in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, because at this point in the careers of
if you could combine them, great player.
Oh, great player. I mean, you probably have Russell Wilson back when he's in the Seahawks, to be completely honest. But I mean, no, to your point though, with the receiving core, that's the biggest concern. And when you combine in the fact that it's Arthur Smith who didn't utilize all the talent that he had down in Atlanta. I mean, what is he going to do here? So I agree with you. It might just be Pickens and Pat Freiermuth who are leading the charge on targets, especially when you lose Deontay Johnson. But it's the Pittsburgh Steelers at the end of the day. Like, they always find wide receivers.
Calvin Austin's going to be awesome, or somebody like that we're not. Somebody they took in the 5th round.
Yeah, Roman Wilson is going to get healthy, and he's going to be a Hall of Famer all of a sudden. Like, it's going to be nuts. And so, the offense, I agree with you with the Arthur Smith thing. They're going to run heavy. They're going to run play action. That, to me, fits what Russell Wilson does at this point in his career, where he's going to, turn his back to the defense and take some shots on the field if it presents itself. Is he going to be able to throw the ball across the middle of the field to Freiermuth, or are they going to have to scheme him to the perimeter where, Wilson likes to operate? That's something to keep an eye on a little bit more in the X's and O's type of thing. But, defensively, they're going to be good. If TJ Watt's healthy, they're going to dominate. They get Patrick Queen. He's going to be a really good linebacker for him, something they haven't had in a while. And the secondary, that's been a concern. They try to address that. Deshaun Elliott, Miles Killebrew, Cam Sutton, Dante Jackson they acquired in a trade. So they're trying to address the secondary. So that's something to monitor there. But I don't know, man. There's too many question marks I have with how viable they're going to be on offense for me to start buying into them again.
How many games does Justin Fields get to play this year?
I think, honestly, Well, I think if Tomlin has his way, it is 0 because what does Tomlin hate more than anything? Turnovers. And holy smokes,
man. Lying. And he already came out right away and said Russ is going to be the starter. He's not lying to us.
Yeah, that's true. Mike Tomlin, if there's one thing, he tells you how he thinks. That is for sure at the podium. But how many do you think, though? I'll throw it back to you.
I bet Justin Fields starts. Well, this is assuming Russell Wilson is healthy the whole year. I don't want to say, he's going to play 13 games because Russ gets hurt. I bet you Justin Fields starts 3 games, whether Russell Wilson's injured or not this season.
Do you think we see multi-package quarterback situations on the field at the same time?
I sure hope not. I've never, ever seen an instance where that works in the NFL and college. It'll work in high school, and it sounds cool in flag football. I want them to run him out as the kick returner. There was that stupid report earlier this year. But my thought process behind that is we spent the better part of 3 years going, man, Justin Fields just doesn't have it. Chicago's got to move on. Arthur Smith would love this guy. And now they're together through some weird circumstances, and Russell Wilson is not bulletproof anymore. He's on the smallest deal he possibly could be on, so it's not a money thing. And I think that if things get stagnant, probably the 8th George Pickens fit that he throws on the field is when we're getting a switch.
Cincinnati Bengals. Oh, baby. I mean, this could be the biggest turnaround year to year just because Joe Burrow is going to be healthy. That's the reality of the situation, right? Burrow, for all the reports coming out, Tyson, the guy looks good. He looks sharp. He's ready to go. His body is healed. And I think in a weird way, and this, the wrist injury, I know that's concerning to some people. It's not like he's rehabbing another knee. It's not like he's rehabbing his, was his appendix that was hurt. So that's a core injury. The wrist, it's on his throwing hand, so it does give you some concern. But in a weird way, his body might be the healthiest it's been in a long time. So you combine that fact, it's always going to come down to the offensive line. They've tried to address it. It's still a question mark to me. The T. Higgins situation is weird. Is he going to be fully bought in? The Jamar Chase contract situation is strange. Weird. And they lose Brian Callahan, the OC, not as big of a deal because of the fact that, the head coach, Zach Taylor, is calling plays and designing this offense. So, that's not as big a concern. But, where are you at with the Bengals as we enter this season?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations on cashing your plus 220 Joe Burrow Comeback Player of the Year tickets. If this dude plays 17 games, this thing is wrapped. I don't care what Aaron Rodgers does. Joe Burrow is going to put up crooked numbers. I think that losing Joe Mixon is fine for this team, and replacing him with a combo of Chase Brown and Zach Moss is going to be hopefully able to do the same thing if you're Cincinnati. Maybe a little bit more juice would be the goal, more explosives. This offense is so hard to predict what's going to happen because we know they're all awesome. We know Jamar Chase is one of the top 5 conservative in the NFL playing wide receiver.
For sure.
T. Higgins is a top 15 or 20 guy conservative, and I think that they're both going to play, and I don't expect any issues. I think that Ocho Cinco getting on a podcast and saying Jamar Chase isn't touching the field till he gets a new contract makes things interesting, but also it would be unprecedented for a guy who he's not even really up for a contract extension to ask for the same thing as Justin Jefferson, and it'd be way more unprecedented for the Cincinnati Bengals to be the ones to pay that person, and that's kind of why I think nothing's going to happen there. I expect T. Higgins to play this whole year. I expect the defense to be just as good as always, and I think that it's a funny thing because they were pretty bad for good stretches last year. And it's do you sweep that part under the rug because Joe Burrow is back? Or do you say that's who they are now? Can Joe Burrow bring them back to where they need to be? I personally lean towards the fact that I've seen Joe Burrow win a ton of football games and just win. And that's the one thing that was missing last year as things kind of became a bit of a circus. They were losing games. Joe Burrow's fine with all these personalities. Just give me the rock. I'll make sure you're all happy.
And speaking of back, Tyson, I think that this defense is going to be back under my boy Lou Anarumo in the big way. Do you see who's also back here for the Bengals? Von Bell, the safety, knows this system. You get Geno Stone, a really good player. So the problem was the safeties were out of sorts and they were getting picked apart. I mean, Cam Taylor-Britt, I think, is an awesome cornerback on the outside. He's going to emerge, who I think is going to be a top 15, top 20 cornerback in the league, and people are going to know about him this year. I got to shout out my boy from Penn State, Mike Gesicki. I think It hasn't quite worked here. I have an issue with the way that teams are like bringing him in. You know he can't block. Why don't you just use him as a slot receiver and just a big body slot receiver? I actually think they're going to do that this year for all intents and purposes from what's been reported from the Cincinnati Bengals. Use him as the Tyler Boyd across the middle of the field. Possession guy middle. He's reliable. He can catch. That makes sense to me. Like, stop trying to make him a blocker. Like, it just makes no sense. You're like, man, he's just not very good at that. So why are you having him do it? Like, that's my question. But listen, Tyson and I were so out on Zach Taylor for a long time. And it was like, this guy just keeps winning. And last year without Joe Burrow, what he was able to do with the backup quarterback, it was really impressive. And so I think I can't believe I'm saying this. I think as long as Zach Taylor's there, they have a chance with Joe Burrow to win a Super Bowl. And it's kind of crazy to think about, but that's how much we believe in Joe Burrow. And if they're able to keep Jamar Chase and build pieces around them on rookie deals and be able to, have Burrow elevate the weapons, it's hard for me to think this team's going to go anywhere as long as he's on the field.
Yeah, and one kind of thing that I've not seen brought up at all when you talk about this receiving room, T. Higgins trying to get paid. Like, none of these minor back injuries or like ankle tweaks or anything that have kind of kept him out of extended stretches of games. Like this year, he wants money. I want the numbers. T. Higgins, when Joe Burrow plays, has been fantastic from a statistical standpoint. I don't expect anything to change on that end this year. I would think that it'd be Yoshivas that might end up being the big slot over Gesicki, but I think that both of those guys probably work in somewhere, and they'll find a way to get like Trenton Irwin on the field or whoever it is. They've always got a cast of characters, but at the end of the day, like, you got 9, and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, Yoshivas, they really love him there. That's for sure. So, all right, AFC North kind of closing thoughts here. We'll do our betting episode later. That's coming up in a future episode. I do have a surprise pick in this one. I think from a power rating standpoint, I'd still put the Baltimore Ravens number 1. It's hard for me to argue with past results, but I have a lot of question marks going into the season for them. I'm bumping the Bengals up to 2. Listen, Joe Burrow's back. God, it's hard for me not to put him 1. I just believe in him. I believe in this offense. I think the defense is going to be improved. I think they're going to be a really good team. And then the Browns, I think the ceiling is just a little bit higher than the Steelers. So I have them as the 3rd best team, and the Steelers last place in this division.
I would swap your 1 and 2 as we sit right now. That very likely could and will change by the time we do our betting episode. This one's hard.
It is. That's what makes it so fun. So like, subscribe, and share the show. Like we've alluded to, we got more episodes coming out at a later date, especially the betting one, as we kind of put a bow on the preseason of the NFL. But we still have the NFC North to talk about and the 2 Eastern divisions in the NFL as well. So the NFC North is coming out next. Make sure to tune into that. We'll talk to you guys then. Peace.